Welcome back everyone to theCUBE's live coverage here and searching for the Databricks Data plus AI Summit. We got the next guest, one of the original OGs of Databricks, Michael Armbrust, who's the distinguished software engineer in Databricks, worked on Lakeflow, Delta Table back in the days, been around since the Spark days, leading the efforts on ELT and declarative pipelines. Welcome back to theCUBE, congratulations on the success.
Thanks for having me.
How do you feel?
I'm feeling great. This is a pretty exciting summit.
So back in the day, we were, Spark was the hot thing. Hadoop was kind of cratering and hard to work with. Pete Sonsini just gave a real overview of the whole above the clouds paper. A lot of Berkeley action going on around this area. You got to look at what's happened as quite a revolution. The data wave hit, big data kind of got stunted at birth with Hadoop.
Yeah, I think that's right. That
clearly happened. Now in comes the real big data wave over the past decade. You've been there front row seat. What's your takeaway right now? Where are we on the scope? Because back then it was get the data in there, get some analytics going, get some dashboards.
Yep, so I think everyone's very excited about all the traditional use cases like BI and reporting and AI as well, but really all of these things are built on a solid foundation of good data. And so Spark kind of revolutionized the ability to use large clusters of computers to get that data in, but you were still writing what almost looked like MapReduce code. Yeah. And really, the story of the last 10 years has been Spark SQL, structured streaming, Delta, and now declarative pipelines.
So I got to ask you, in every wave, there's always a feature that gets kind of subsumed because it's really not a company or a true feature, it's more of a platform element. I mean a feature of a platform, I just call it, but a standalone tool. What are you seeing? We saw streaming, for instance, go right into the platform. Now you got connectors that are evolving. We're going to have Fivetran on, and you asked me a year ago, I'm like, I don't know about that, how that's going to evolve. But yet, they're changing things. So connectors and MCP is hot. I mean, love that this year. One of the big surprises of the year is the rise of MCP.
Yep, yeah.
Which I think is actually a phenomenal effort. What's your take on these kinds of things that are emerging? Some fall into the platform, some stand alone and become connective tissue. As an engineer who are architecting, I got to prepare for the generative world, which is be ready for anything at low latency.
Yep, that's right. So I mean, really, what we're always looking at is as data becomes more and more important to the business, more and more people need to work with data. And not everybody is a PhD from Berkeley, an expert in distributed systems. And so the story of Lakeflow is trying to make it possible for anybody to get value from data. And so Lakeflow Connect is a great example of that, where with no programming at all, you can bring in data from any source and get it into the platform so you can begin transforming it and using it to power your business.
So it launched GA.
That's right.
That's the big news. And okay, what does that mean for people who are doing SQL and Python? I mean, you go back 3 years ago, got to learn Python. Now, not so much.
Well, I really think that there's a spot for everybody here. Lakeflow Connect is great when you want to bring in a couple of data sources. When you want to bring in thousands of data sources, often there's going to be some custom transformations you need to do. And where Python becomes really powerful, a pattern that we've seen over and over again with many of our customers is metaprogramming. Yeah, it's not one table, it's 1,000 tables. And they build these frameworks that encode the rules of their business and then allow anybody in the business to kind of do ingestion and transformation automatically, but following kind of the standards and principles of one particular business.
Democratizing ETL has been kind of the North Star and dream scenario for over a decade. I mean, everyone's tried, there's been dead bodies all littered in the industry on this point. But the role of tables and metadata is a huge deal. Explain why having tables with metadata are so more relevant for the kind of AI world we live in. Explain that, because metadata is really key to some of the speed and understanding and software algorithms that are coming.
Yeah, that's right. So, I think at the core of this in the Databricks platform is Unity Catalog. Yep. It's not only governance, but it's also data discovery. And so we have all of that information, not only information produced by users about what this table is, what this column means, but also information produced by AI, and also information that we can only have because we have the entire platform. Who created this table? Who's the most common user of this table? What jobs query this table? And you can use that to understand that data and how it can improve your business.
I mean, the framing that I think about this is this is where enterprise intelligence will come from. So take me through how that happens, because you got Lakebase and Lakeflow kind of go together. Yes. This is kind of where it connects.
Yeah, that's right.
Lakebase is all connected to Lakehouse, and then Lakeflow
Yeah,
It's
so
kinda
Lakebase
like-
is about storing data in a way that is transactional with low latency, fast updates, kind of all that standard transactional workloads. Lakeflow is how you move the data around. When you want to move it from operational to analytics, when you want to move it from an external system into Unity Catalog, when you want to publish it outside, that is what Lakeflow is for that transformation and movement of data.
Yeah, one of the advances I've been seeing over the past year in the technical circles is just the rise of how fast tooling has developed. The old days was you had to build a tool to do a job and then you throw it away, and in some cases you open source or whatever. Now you can do tooling much faster. Is that going to speed up migrations and integration? What's your view as an engineer? Okay, because connecting is kind of been a hard job.
Yes, definitely.
How does that get easier? Is that Lakeflow or is it something else?
Yeah, no, so something I actually saw, and one of the key inspirations for Lakeflow was, I talked to a lot of customers, I've seen these homegrown ETL frameworks that they build, and they always start off great, but the key problem is if it's not core to your business's value proposition, it's hard to invest the level of resources it takes to maintain an ETL framework. And that's why we're excited about Lakeflow, because it is our core business to make ETL
All right,
easy.
so I have to ask you, so there's a lot of people out there who have made their career on being a SQL engineer, data person. It's a fine art, it's craft to it. A lot of the times, that's going to get automated, so they're looking for new careers. So what would you advise them to where they should optimize their thinking or time to learn a new skill? Is it Lakeflow? Is it the AI native with Mosaic AI?
I think SQL's not going anywhere, and the way I think of it is, still, SQL is the lingua franca, and so when you're using an AI, maybe the AI is generating the SQL, but being able to understand it, having that literacy is incredibly important. What I think is changing, though, is the fact that before, SQL was only part of the equation, and you had to build this whole kind of messy framework around it to run the SQL, restart it if it failed, incrementalize the SQL, all these problems. With Lakeflow, you can now write one single SQL statement, and that becomes an entire end-to-end data pipeline. And even if you don't know SQL, you can use the designer, you can use the AI, and those can generate this SQL for you.
So they're more artisans at this point, becoming a SQL master.
I think that's exactly right.
All right, so the operational hassle goes away. Yeah, that's what you're getting at.
That's exactly right. I want people to focus on their unique skill. They understand their domain, they understand their business, they understand its data. That's where they should be spending their time, not on the undifferentiated heavy lifting of executing.
All right, so when you built Lakeflow, was Ali behind it, or was he skeptical?
Oh no, Ali was, Lakeflow was, he kind of looked at a couple of different initiatives inside of Databricks. We had the traditional workflows orchestrator, we had DLT, was kind of the earlier name for declarative pipelines. We didn't really have a connector story, and he realized that having these separate systems wasn't getting the full value from it, so he's the one who kind of brought it together into this one singular product.
I mean, it's plumbing that has to get done. Now, where does it go from here? Because now I can envision enterprises who will have either OLTP native with what you guys have. There's still OLTP everywhere else. You have other things to connect to. The integration into what we call legacy and modern legacy, a term we made up, whatever that means. Modern, but yet still legacy. Agentic AI infrastructure, which is what's happening. What does this do for like an enterprise? Because now they have either old ETL stuff. So what's your vision on that?
Well, so I think if you look at the story of Databricks, we started off wanting to make Spark the best way to work with data. Then we transitioned to wanting to be the best place to run Spark. We're now in phase 3, where Databricks should be the best place to work with data, whether or not it's Spark, or whether or not it's OLTP, or whether or not it's small data that's coming out of something like Salesforce. It's really all of the data in one place, where the unified data platform and data intelligence get the most value.
And Unity's the key to this.
Exactly, because it is, as soon as you start collecting lots of data, the regulator should start to get nervous inside of your business, and that's why governance is key. So it's not just about collecting it all, but it's being able to govern it in one central place that makes Unity so powerful.
What about what this leads into for enabling the agent brick, which I thought was a really great part of the keynote. I was skeptical, actually, that you guys would have anything, although Jonathan Frankel said to me a few months ago, wait for data plus AI, because I was asking about multiple model integrations, and he says, just wait. So I can't wait to talk to him later today. But what does that mean for agents? Is it clean things up? Does it set the table?
Yeah, so I think that really the crazy, it was fun to watch that keynote get created, because we kept coming back to, It's so simple, you actually don't understand the complexity of what's going on under the covers. As Casey improved the agent that she was building, it's like, is all she's doing is prompting it under the covers? But no, actually because we have these experts in building these models from scratch, we're able to tune them to do exactly what you want to do for your business in a way that's not possible with just simple prompting. And so I think that's what's so powerful, is by using that data, refining the models, you can really control them and get them to do exactly what you're looking for.
I thought Anthropic's CEO, a founder who really came on the keynote, also had some good commentary, very candid. What do you think about how he was going at the whole distilling and refining, and he really kind of laid out the key points of how people should think about the models. Of course, Jamie Dimon then said, don't debate, and small models can be good, but you don't need to build a small model, you can kind of distill. There's a lot of theory and a lot of practice going on around this. What's your perspective on the model side of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the innovation we've been seeing here, where it started off with just like the most massive models were the only way to get anything done. The ability to take those, quantize them, refine them, get them so that they're something that's not only able to do a good job, but also something that you're able to run efficiently, is really what's going to let this kind of move into all areas of the business.
What about people who have data, like we have our CUBE data, give you a little demo of that, it's like, that's our language for all the CUBE interviews. How do I train that? I think it's already trained, or it's already there. I really need to train it. It is what it is. It's trained.
Yeah.
It's at rest, it's already there, but I want to put it to work with other data.
Well, and this is where you need to kind of move it into the right systems. Like having it sitting in an S3 bucket doesn't accomplish your goal. You need something like vector index and Lakeflow to populate that vector index so that you can have the model look up the most relevant context as quickly as possible so that it can understand not just the stuff that it was trained on at massive scale, but also the information that is custom to your business.
Okay, once I have that vector database, what happens next?
Yeah, so then connecting it into Databricks is trivial. That's what's so
really
cool about it, yes. Yeah, like once it's in the vector index, now you can look up that data not just by keywords, but just by concepts, by embeddings. And that's when it becomes so cool that indexes are no longer just full text indexes, they're actually based on ideas. All right,
you were telling me the story about when you joined Databricks that you told Ollie you'd give him a year?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
It's just not PR approved commentary from Michael here, but this is kind of how startups work, right? And we're seeing a lot of startups coming out. Woodwork I believe is going to be a renaissance of enterprise, but also a Cambrian explosion of new apps. What happened? You say, give you a year, and then what? Take us through the journey, because it was not understood at the beginning this could be this big.
No, absolutely. So when I joined, I was I was doing a postdoc at Google. I was deep into Query Optimizer specifically, and Ali convinced me to come to Databricks to help build the first version of Spark SQL. That thing that took Spark from looking a lot like Hadoop and made it this declarative, kind of familiar interface. And I spent that first year building Catalyst, the Query Optimizer. And what happened was, when we open sourced it, when we contributed to the Apache project, and usage took off, I was like, oh, this is going somewhere. This is way too much fun.
IBM jumped on the bandwagon too, if you remember.
Right.
They were one of the first big brands.
Yep.
Because they were trying to make a bet. All right, then as you look at now, the maturization, the intelligence platform, there really is a platform here to make things work. I was just talking to one of your customers, a friend of mine. He's a big time guy. He's technical. He's like, I love Databricks because I've used Unity. I can use Iceberg, and I don't have to worry about where I store my data.
Yes.
I can still run my AI. And he does massive transaction volumes.
The unifying of the table formats. As the creator of Delta, I think it's also one of the coolest things that we've done recently. The ideas behind Delta and Iceberg are very similar. It's you've got all of these files out in S3, but you need some transactional metadata to manage them. So it was always kind of silly for businesses have to decide, am I going to use Iceberg? Am I going to use Delta? But in the last year, we've made huge strides in making it so they kind of are almost exactly the same thing. And Unity is the best catalog to work with either format.
I've interviewed Ollie many times. He always says, "Oh, we're not going to stop betting on Amazon Web Services, which you guys are a big part of." You mentioned S3 buckets. S3 they have S3 tables, which I think is Iceberg format, but now you have multiple clouds, so the multiple cloud thing happened over the past 4 years or so. What does that do for you guys? Because does it matter if I store it on Azure or AWS?
Yeah, see, our goal is you shouldn't have to think about that. We should abstract away those complexities for you. So, for the engineers, that's like a big part of our day is thinking about how ADLS is different from S3, is different from GCS. But once you're using Databricks, it's just autoloader. You don't think about how the storage systems are different. We abstract that away for you.
But you got to run on some compute is critical.
Well, but this is where serverless, I think, also begins to abstract away the compute as well. You get a serverless cluster, you pay for only the compute that you're using, you don't think about what instance types or how much memory it has, we just make sure that workload runs reliably and as efficiently as possible.
Does that change my relationship with, say, AWS?
I mean, it doesn't have to. We still have Classic. You can continue to launch in your own account. But I think a lot of users have found that's, again, a type of undifferentiated heavy lifting that's not getting them any value.
Yeah, and Amazon doesn't care. You innovate on top of Amazon, they're still going to run all their stuff on AWS.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we love to use AWS and Azure. Like, all of these clouds are pretty amazing.
All right, so what are you working on now? What's the big thing you're working on now?
So, I'm the Uber tech lead for Lakeflow. And so I am very excited about the open sourcing of Lakeflow declarative pipelines in Apache Spark. Because I do think that this is a fundamentally better way to do ETL.
All right, so you had to keep this all on the down low for a while.
Yes, although with Spark, it turns out it was on the dev list 3 weeks ago.
What's the open source goals? Can you share for the folks watching, who might want to jump in? Obviously you got good open source mojo. Now, where do you want to take this? What are some of what's your thoughts? What's your vision? Yeah,
so when we first created DLT inside of Databricks, it was because we saw customers struggle over and over again writing Spark programs when what they really wanted to do is get value out of their data. Declarative pipelines changes that, so you kind of say what should exist and the system figures it out. Once we battle tested it, once we made it into a true platform, usually the next step for us is to contribute it to the community. I think that's how you get the mind share, that's how you make it the standard way of doing things, and also that's just how you leverage the community to improve the product over time.
Michael, talk about the importance of declarative pipelines when it comes to agents. I mean, one of the things we're seeing in the enterprise, end-to-end workflows with data are well known and formed.
Yeah.
So declarative is not a bad thing.
But I think the key thing here is those agents are going to produce garbage answers if they're not working on good data, and declarative pipelines is how you get that good data. And it's also the language that allows the agents to help you build those pipelines. I think as soon as a SQL statement became a declarative pipeline, using an agent to build that declarative pipeline became dramatically simpler.
Dave Vellante and George Gilbert and I, we were talking about the disconnect between process design and process audit and data matching, and that's what you're solving. You're saying you can know your process and workflows.
That's right, that's exactly right.
Now you can match the declarative pipelines with the engineering of that.
And really the thing is,
right?
It unlocks this ability for people who they're experts in their domain, but they're not experts in programming. This makes them into data engineers.
All right, my next guest is Patrick Wendell. I got to ask you, what should I ask him?
What should you ask Patrick? So Patrick runs a lot of our AI org, so you should hit him hard on our agent story.
All right.
And ask him if he's got any good stories from the early days.
Michael, congratulations on Lakeflow and your continued success. Love the open table formats, the work you guys done there. Again, you guys set the standard. I think 2 years ago you put it out there.
That's right.
Was a shot heard around the world. We covered that too. Again, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
All right, love talking to Databricks. They get down in the weeds. We can get down and dirty, but the open table formats, and you're seeing the unification of the data and getting the data in the right workflows at the right time will be the key to success. More coverage here from theCUBE after this short break.